Assalamu alaikum. You are listening to Dear Ustadha Raidah with your host, Raidah Shah Idil. This podcast is about applying radical empathy and prophetic mercy to different life challenges. This podcast is brought to you by Seekers Guidance, the Global Islamic Seminary. At Seekers Guidance, we believe in keeping reliable Islamic knowledge free and accessible for all those who seek it. You can help us keep all our content and services free and also earn the rewards of an ongoing and worthwhile charity by making a small pledge at seekersguidance.org/donate. Even $10 a month will go a long way in helping us produce content and services and in keeping them accessible to everyone. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, dear listeners. Welcome to episode 7 of Dear Ustadha Raidah. I'm your host, Raidah Shah Idil, and I welcome you to today's episode. Now, today's topic is unfortunately, it's a very common one in the Muslim community, especially perhaps diaspora communities in the West who face very unique challenges. So let me read the question. It's basically titled, Told by Parents to Cut Ties with Brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have an older brother who is very dear to me, raised me and my sister very well. He is a really great guy, but recently he has, quote-unquote, fallen in love with a horrible woman. She had her eye on him when he was in relations with her cousin, and since then, she has flirted with him and made him fall in love with her. She is older and also has 2 young children. She always goes out and she shows my brother off as if they are married. She has sworn at my parents many times and called my family bad names, but my brother really wants to marry her and she won't let go. This has been going on for 4 years and my parents are very hurt by his actions. They have done everything to get him to stop other than agree to let him marry her. I am very lost and don't know what to do. It's like choosing between my parents and my brother. I resent his girlfriend as well. I really don't like her. My parents gave them 2 chances. They ruined both, but they won't stop asking to get married. My father said to my brother that he can go and get married, but we will cut all ties with him. Should we be cutting ties with my brother? In Islam, we are supposed to do everything for our parents, but we are also told not to cut ties. So I'm very confused on what to do at this point. So my answer. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I pray this finds you well. May Allah reward you for reaching out to us. Cutting off ties. If they strive to make you associate with me anything about which you have no knowledge, then do not obey them, yet keep their company in this life according to what is right. Surah Luqman, ayah 31-15. I am sorry to hear about your troubled family situation. It is very difficult when your own brother wants to marry someone who has treated your family so poorly. Even so, cutting off ties with your brother is impermissible. You are permitted to keep a reasonable distance from him and his future wife, for example, visiting them monthly instead of weekly, for example. Even if your parents forbid you from visiting him, please know that there is no obedience in disobeying Allah. Looking to the future. Please know that if your brother has children, then they are innocent from the sins of their mother and are still your nephews and nieces. Especially while they are young, the only way you can cultivate a relationship with them is through keeping on civil terms with your future sister-in-law. You do not have to like her, but you do have to treat her with respect and kindness. Cultivating influence. Connection brings about influence. Cutting off ties will render your parents and you powerless. The more you distance yourself from your brother, the more he will stay connected to the woman he wants to marry instead of you and your family. If your parents cut him off, how will they get to know their future grandchildren? Choosing short-term relief will cause long-term pain. Choosing short-term difficulty, that is, working on accepting a difficult daughter-in-law, will bring about long-term happiness, inshallah. Wisdom behind this. Narrated Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Keys of the unseen knowledge are 5, which nobody knows but Allah. Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. Nobody knows what will happen what is in the womb. Nobody knows what he will gain tomorrow. Nobody knows at what place he will die, and nobody knows when it will rain." Bukhari. Allah Most High knows what we do not know. This whole difficult situation is a means to exercise patience and good character. Perhaps your brother just needs to learn the hard way by getting married to this woman. Perhaps Allah has destined this woman to be the mother of his children. Perhaps marriage will soften her heart. Being a single mother of 2 children is no easy task. Perhaps the security of marriage will help her to bring out her kindness, and perhaps you will ask forgiveness from your parents. The question is whether you or not your parents can find it in their hearts to forgive her. In the end, she is the wife your brother has chosen. In case his marriage does not work out, then it is all the more important for you to stay in touch with your brother. Goodness to parents. Narrated Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him. A man asked the Prophet ﷺ, what deeds are the best? The Prophet ﷺ said, number 1, to perform the daily compulsory prayers at the early stated fixed time. Number 2, to be good and dutiful to one's own parents. Number 3, and to participate in jihad in Allah's cause. Bukhari. It is indeed your personal obligation to be respectful and kind to your parents. However, this does not include obeying them in that which displeases Allah. Explain this to them calmly with the utmost deference. Now, I included the link to the wonderful course which I believe everyone should do. It's called The Excellence with Parents, Muhammad Malou's Birru Walidain, and another link about explained your parents' rights and how to fulfill them. Now, beneath your parents' anger are probably deep feelings of helplessness, disappointment, grief, and so on. They are probably so heartbroken that after everything they have done to raise your brother, he has turned his back on them by wanting to marry a woman of bad character. This is a great test for them. Good character and boundaries. It is a very big headache to feel stuck in between your parents and your brother and his future wife. So I encourage you to see it this way. The more they complain about each other to you, the less likely they are able to mend ties. They need to talk to each other, not about each other. This, of course, is easier said than done. It is all the more important for you to show good character. This does not mean being a doormat, however. When you do attend your brother's wedding and visit his family home, be kind and patient. If your future sister-in-law starts to badmouth your parents, then draw a polite and firm boundary. For example, please do not speak about my parents like that. Suggest that she raise her concerns directly with the mediator. Similarly, suggest that your parents find a wise elder or local scholar to mediate a discussion with your brother and his future wife. Working with reality. 4 years of bad blood is a long time. Unless your brother's future wife has an undiagnosed mental illness, I do not understand the motive behind her bad behavior towards your parents. Is she lashing out in response to feeling shamed? She probably knows that she is not ideal wife material. It sounds like your parents would have preferred that your brother marry someone younger and a virgin, and perhaps someone of their choosing. Instead, he chose a culturally frowned upon older single mother. She didn't quote-unquote make him fall in love with her. Nobody has that kind of power. He freely gave his heart away and wants to marry her. Growth mindset. She is either a problem or an opportunity for growth, and she is not going away. I advise you and your parents to accept this reality and to embrace her place in your brother's life with open, forgiving hearts. At least she is Muslim. Reflect on that. She is openly sinful, but at least she is still Muslim. Imagine your brother wanted to marry a non-Muslim single mother. I am not saying that what she is doing is right. I'm merely stating this fact. She is not going away. So show her compassion and good character in the hopes that she will soften and perhaps one day ask your parents for forgiveness. I pray that your brother knows the responsibility he is carrying by being a stepfather to two small children. Perhaps his kindness to them will help them be better in behavior than their mother. However, for as long as he is angering your parents, and he is not in a good state with Allah. So I encourage your parents to find a way to forgive him for his foolishness and his poor decision-making skills. He has many other virtues from your description. It is better for your parents' hearts to let go of their understandable anger. May Allah elevate their ranks in Jannah for enduring so much. You all have a choice in how you respond to this tribulation. It has dragged on for far too long, so choose forgiveness, compassion, and empathy. Reflection exercise. Imagine the difference in these two scenarios. Scenario A, with what your parents are headed to. A wedding where your brother has none of his family with him, a heart full of rejection, anger, and sadness, and a daughter-in-law who is even more sure that her in-laws do not want her, and stepchildren who will not know their stepfather's family. Your sister-in-law is unlikely to want your brother's unborn children to have a relationship with any of you. Rejection breeds more rejection. Scenario B. A wedding with the blessing of your parents and a joining of families. Your brother's heart overflowing with love for all of you. Your future sister-in-law softened by the acceptance of her in-laws, and her children knowing that they have a stepfather, new step-uncles and step-aunties, and even step-grandparents. Your brother's children will be happily embraced by your parents. Love brings about more love. The choice is yours. I pray this has been helpful. Please also see when may parents be disobeyed and how, and do I have to obey my parents if they order me to leave Sunnah X? SubhanAllah, so that was a very long answer. Thank you for your patience. It's really sad, and it's very complex, and it's also very common. And I think one pattern I keep seeing in the Muslim community all around the world is this idea that cutting off ties and being harsh and towing the hard line and these kinds of things will somehow work. And I've never actually heard a good result come out from any of that. If anything, the family is brave enough to bend, to show compassion, to forgive. That's where I actually see the opportunity for growth and change. If anything, I would say cutting off ties, not only is it impermissible, it's a cop-out, and it is lazy. So what does it show? It just shows that, okay, this situation is too hard for me to deal with. I'm just gonna exit stage. But that's giving up, and ours is not a deen of despair. Cutting off ties with any family member is a heavy burden, and it's something that I think the only case where I would say that actually this is really important, you need to cut ties, you need to take a break, is when there's actual psychological, emotional, or physical harm, some kind of abuse, but in this scenario I don't see that happening. I just see that as parents being deeply wounded that their eldest son is just not listening to them about his choice of wife. So the brave thing and the harder thing to do is to show up, is to say, okay, I'm not happy with your decision, but I am still your parent, I still love you, I want to be part of your life, let's work this through. And it's hard, of course it's hard, but dunya is hard, we know that. Jannah, that's where inshallah eternal rest, respite, joy, all the good stuff, that's where it happens. But the dunya, that's where we work hard to attain that, inshallah. So it's not easy. Of course it's not easy, but as a general rule, rejection, harshness, cutting of ties, threats, ultimatums. These kinds of behavioral patterns do not bring about solutions. They simply bring about estrangement. They bring about, family members who don't talk for decades, family members who end up dying alone, who end up so disconnected from blood. And it's terrible, and it's a burden in the heart, and no parent truly is able to rest easy, knowing that they don't know how their child is. They don't know how their adult children are doing. They don't know their grandkids. Unless, of course, that parent has an undiagnosed mental illness, which is a whole other story. But for the most part, cutting of ties is heartbreaking, and there are reasons why Allah makes certain things impermissible. It's out of compassion and love for us. We are wired for connection. We are wired to need and want our families. We are wired to thrive, and we are in mutually respectful and loving relationships. And family will always be family. None of us have the ability to choose who we get as parents, who we get as siblings, with all the love and headache that come from that. But there's always some kind of wisdom. So if you find yourself in a similar scenario, or a family or friend in this kind of situation, choose love. That's the prophetic way. This does not mean, condoning what is sinful. You do call out, hey, it's not okay the way your future wife is speaking to mom and dad. You need to make that right. But you need to still have a relationship. You need to stay connected. What hope is there of any influence if you're not connected to someone? It's like, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ had deep, loving, connected relationships with his Sahaba and his wives, his children. That's how he was able to influence their hearts, of course, on top of being a prophet of Allah, Sallallahu. It's that connection. People loved him. People still love him. It's when love is there, then people are open to change. People soften. But when it's anger and hardness and brittleness, people are too afraid to let their guard down, and they just, keep aloof and estranged and distant, and nobody wins. And the ones who always lose out are the children, the most vulnerable. So if this scenario were to play out in its current trajectory, this young man marries his woman against his parents' wishes, and he has children, and they may not even know their grandparents, and that's a tremendous loss. And that kind of household will have a lot of stress, and a lot of unresolved tension, and children pick up on this because they are sponges. So think of the kids. Think about that. And ultimately, as long as your child, your adult child, wants to marry a Muslim, imagine how much harder it would be if you wanted to marry someone who wasn't even Muslim. SubhanAllah, then what? It could truly always be worse. So that's something to think about, right? How to nurture a connection with your children to Islam, to Allah and His Prophet ﷺ from a young age, so that they willingly love Allah and His Messenger ﷺ and only want to marry Muslims. So subhanAllah, may Allah grant ease to this family and to all families struggling with this difficult situation, inshallah. So I pray this has been helpful. Inshallah, please make dua for those of us that seek His guidance. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Nabil Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Thank you for listening. We hope that you found immense benefit in today's episode. Please take a moment to spread this benefit by sharing this podcast with your friends and family. Thank you.